Welcome to Know the Cause. You know, you should have seen me about 2 hours ago. I'm in my garage with my little, workhorse, pull-ups, push-ups, etc., jogging in place and so forth, dripping wet. And it's the time of year where it's a little cool outside, kind of nice, but a little cool. And yet I'm dripping wet. Folks, I do that for a reason. And here's the take-home message from this rant or this opening. A study of 500,000 Americans concluded that a healthy lifestyle may reduce the risk for certain cancers. But who pays for this stuff? You can just watch Know the Cause every day. You guys got to watch me get old and knock on wood. There's no cancer yet. It's not easy getting up and going outside when it's still dark and doing a workout. It's not easy going to the store and seeing all those cookies and cakes and candy and deciding on lettuce and beets and carrots and celery. But it pays off, and it's paid off for me. You've gotten to watch me for 16 years on television, go from 49 years young to 65 years young. I live a certain lifestyle that I try and encourage you to do the same. Hippocrates, and it bears repeating, the father of medicine said, let food be your medicine. I have decided to do that, and you can too. And you will be amazed when you eat well and do some of this, how not only good you feel, but how it is preventing the onset of certain cancers. We can do this. We are empowered. We watch Know the Cause. Welcome. My name is Doug Kaufman. For the past 40 years, I've dedicated my life and even my career to finding the root cause of disease. Join me in a team of physicians, pharmacists, and scientists, and soon you too will know the cause. You all know by now, I've been on TV for 14 years and on radio for a decade before that. You all know what I call the phase 1 diet, right? But very few of you understand this phase 2 diet, and so many inquiries come in. Doug, I'm done with the phase 1 diet. Can I now attempt or cheat to the phase 2 diet? So what is this phase 2 diet? Why was it important? Many years ago, when I got back in Vietnam, I was sick. And all the king's horses and all the king's men and all the cortisone couldn't put me back together again. And I began to study what might be wrong with me. I felt like a worm was in my body, a parasite. And lo and behold, it wasn't a worm, but I found out I was parasitized. I had a parasite on board. It's called fungus. You must kill fungus. You must simultaneously starve it. It craves carbohydrates. So that's what I want to talk about. In a book written in 1945 during World War II, these 5 doctors at Duke University said a low carbohydrate diet is necessary if you want to treat your diabetics. And yet today, doctors don't know that. So a lot of foods have carbohydrates, right? Fruits, vegetables, and so forth. So minimize the amount of sugar that you take in. So our phase 1 diet is for sick people or for those experimenting. Let's say I don't know if my eye twitches, my arthritis, my stomach problems, my depression, my hair falling out are linked with my diet. Go to a phase 1 diet and try it. Then how do you graduate, or what is this phase 2 diet? Because so many of you tell me, boy, that phase 1 is difficult, Doug. I mean, I had to give up my orange juice in the morning, my toast and bagels, and I had to give it all up. And I'm feeling great now, by the way, a month and a half on the phase 1 diet, but this is difficult. I want to graduate. How do you graduate? So I came up many years ago with what I call the next step, or the phase 2 diet. In some books, we call it the life phase diet. The phase 2 diet is a nutritious diet that continues doing what the phase 1 started. You don't want to feed fungus cereal and grains and alcohol and corn and all the things that might be impregnated with fungus. You don't want that back in your body. And years ago, you have to understand, 40 years ago when I told people to go off of grains, that was un-American. I was just back in Vietnam. I was one of the first guys, there are now hundreds of books, Grain Brain, et cetera, that have come out talking about shaking your finger at grain. I'm the guy who started it. And that was absolutely un-American. Cereal companies hated me, donut, everybody hated me. But I talked about living a life that was grain-free because grains as it turns out, are commonly contaminated with fungus. That fungus degrades and makes a poison called a mycotoxin. So we stay away from grains on the phase 2 diet also. You're looking at a guy who hasn't had a bowl of cereal. Now I'm going to have to test myself here. I don't know, maybe 30 years, maybe longer since the last bowl of cereal, right? The lactose in milk we want to stay away from, the sugar, and the grains themselves. What then do you eat on a phase 2 diet as opposed to a phase 1? If you have the phase 1 memorized, and it's on our website, knowthecause.com, the graduation occurs around some more carbohydrates, a little more sugar in your diet. Potatoes are still, you want to be careful. Once in a while is fine, and the question is, are you sick? If you got a tumor growing, you got lymph cancer or something, you obviously want to be on a phase 1 diet with occasional little more fruit, things of that sort. But if you feel good, you follow the phase 1 diet, your symptoms have kind of dried up, or you feel good all the time, and you're not symptomatic at all, then a phase 2 is a lifestyle diet for you to follow. That says more fruits. I will always tell people be careful of melons. You ever take a cantaloupe home and set it on your counter and 2 days later it's being eaten away with mold? Be careful of that. But things like peaches and apricots and seasonal fruits is fine in moderation on a phase 2 diet. We give you on a phase 2 diet some odd things, I know. One of them is flour tortillas. Yeah, you're getting your wheat, and wheat is impregnated with these mycotoxins from time to time, but you'll begin to see a cause and effect relationship between eating those tortillas. Man, I just don't feel so good. Could it be the wheat? It might. We give you beans of any kind with the exception of peanuts. Most people don't know that peanuts aren't nuts, they're beans, but peanuts are commonly contaminated with some of these molds. So we take a phase 1, kind of a very clean diet, and we graduate with those foods. And again, the phase 2 diet is on our website also. Now, people often ask me, does a phase 2 diet taste better than a phase 1 diet? Well, if you consider what Denny and I do inside the kitchen, the food is amazing. Watch this. Okay, so today in Denny's kitchen here at the beach in California, we have hash being made. This isn't regular hash. This is sweet potatoes, which are different than white potatoes.
Better.
You like it? See, so do I. I really do. And it's made bison instead of beef, and all sorts of ingredients. Denny, you go ahead and tell the folks what you got here.
Okay, well, so far what we have in here is just the sweet potatoes, and we've cooked them in a little bit of coconut oil. And once they get a little brown on them, you put a little bit of water in and pop a lid on there and let them steam until they're tender. Just fork tender. We don't want them all the way cooked because we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, and we don't want them to be overcooked.
So with the sweet potato, what we have here is kind of a later phase diet. The sweet potatoes aren't on the phase 1 diet, but everything else I think that we're using here is. Those of you who have graduated beyond the phase 1 diet, so you're very sick, you're following a phase 1 diet, this wouldn't be the recipe for you. Or substitute, or just don't put the sweet potatoes in here, which is also a good idea. But this, Denny, would be a good breakfast, lunch, dinner.
It's really, and
snack.
By the time you add the bison to it, or you could use ground beef or ground turkey or whatever you wanted, and the egg, you've got lots of protein. It's a very hearty meal. So I've added the rest of the onions and the bell peppers, and I'm going to add just a little bit more water.
Okay.
And I'm going to turn the heat up so it's going to begin to steam, and that'll just kind of speed that up. We're going to let it cook for another minute or so.
Okay. Okay, here we are back, and it's cooked for a minute or so, and it smells so good.
Yeah, a couple of minutes to get those vegetables fully cooked.
Okay.
And to get the water that we added to have that evaporate. And then we're going to add our bison, which I just sauteed again in a little bit of coconut oil.
And you're right, that could be turkey.
Could be.
It could be chicken. It could be. Okay.
And you could just leave out the meat altogether and just have the hash with the egg on it.
I still worry, Denny, about beef. I mean, with hormones added and antibiotics still used, and I feel abused very often. I like bison. Nobody has to fatten, a buffalo.
Okay.
They come that way from the factory. Ooh, this looks good.
Okay, we're going to pile this right on. And we poached up an egg a few minutes ago, so it's still nice and warm. We're going to slip that right on top.
Come on, egg.
There you go. And a little bit of smoked paprika on top of that just for a little color.
Look at this. Look at this.
You need a fork.
It deserves a
My friend.
camera. Wait.
There you go.
We have those. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to break that.
Now the great thing about poached eggs that I love is they make their own sauce for whatever
They do
you put
indeed.
them on.
They
so.
do, and I love them.
And you can make them ahead of time and just keep them in a little warm water so they're still warm.
Oh, look at this. What I want is a sweet potato.
What do you think?
I wish the camera could pick up how that tastes.
It's pretty
You cannot do it justice. It is absolutely tremendous. What a breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
There you go.
Thank you, Denny.
My name is Nathan Webb. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I've been on phase 1 for over 4.5 years. I'm on it for migraine headaches. I originally started to get rid of the headaches naturally and drug-free. I decided to skip all the drugs because I was afraid of the neurological problems it would cause. So I strictly did phase 1. It took a long time. I continued to get headaches for the first few months, but every headache was a little less intense. Once I removed the blood sugar out of my bloodstream and out of my diet, all of the grains, all of the alcohol, corn, pasta, bread, muffins, cakes, ice cream, all the extra fruits, things got substantially better. Stick with it. It works. Try it for 30 days, phase 1. It's not fun, but it will prove that it works, and you can feel better too.
So what are my favorite high energy foods? Number 1 is protein. So you've got your salmon and your meats. Make sure, if you can, if they're organic and grass-fed, that's best. Nuts. I love raw nuts, nut butters, things like that. They are filled with protein and fiber, and they really help you to get going. Great with some apples. And then quinoa. Quinoa is high energy food. It's filled with protein. It's a complete protein, so it's actually the same as your eggs and meats and things like that. And it's filled with iron. So iron is one thing that some people are lacking, and it really helps to increase the energy. So protein is kind of the major theme in this. When you have protein, it stabilizes that blood sugar, and the fiber helps to keep you satisfied as well as the fats too. So think of proteins and fats.
You know, I still have doctors, physicians send me some of their patients who are very, very sick, late stage disease, et cetera. And I don't take on many of them anymore because I'm so busy doing this and other chores. But every once in a while I do. The phase 1 diet is mandated when I begin working with these people. I want to see if their heart disease, kidney disease, if their arthritis, if their cancers are linked to mold, mildew, and fungus. And the way you do that is you experiment. You stop feeding it. A lifestyle full of fast foods and alcohol and sugars feed cancer. Ironically, it also feeds fungus. So what I do is work with the doctors and ask them if, number 1, they'll help their patients by giving them antifungals, and number 2, if simultaneous with that, they will begin following my phase 1 diet. Now, I will tell you that many of these people are still going strong. And they have veered, we have experimented with the phase 1 diet. You know what a smoking gun is? Man, you did it, didn't you? You still got the smoking gun in your hand. Many people want to know their smoking gun. Is it potato that makes me feel like this? Is it sugar? Is it bonbons, which I love? Is it my beer? You know, what makes me feel like this? So the phase 1 diet, the purpose for it is to clean out for a period of time. Pretty bland. You know, you don't eat bread, but you can roll some hamburger and lettuce and put some onions and tomatoes in there and eat it. I enjoy it that way. But everyone wants to know their thumbprint. What is it, Doug, that makes me sick? You've got to figure that out. And that's the transition period from the phase 1 diet, okay, in 6 weeks. Wow, at the hospital I used to work in here in Dallas, the doctors were amazed. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and 6 weeks, we'd see their patients. And I'm telling you, 80% of them felt like $1 million. These were people that weren't getting better. But 100% of them said, I'm hungry for, you fill in the blank, something they missed, popcorn, etc. So at 6 weeks, we'd tell them, okay, go ahead and have some popcorn. Go ahead and have a sandwich. Go ahead and have a Dr. Pepper. And this is good, folks. It's one thing for a doctor's chart to know what your triggers are. A whole nother thing for the patient to know what makes them worse. Welcome to the phase 2 diet. Some people, in the old days, certain breads, yeast-free breads existed. Today, all bread has yeast. But there were breads that we said you could have on the phase 2 diet. And so and they're made of wheat, but they didn't have the yeast that makes them rise, right? So they'd eat this bread, or they'd eat a flour tortilla, or they'd have an orange. And that was their trigger point. That was their smoking gun. They would come back in 8 weeks and say, wow, did I have a miserable 2 weeks? Guys, I remember now how I felt through the years. Depressed, moody, sore throats, miserable, colds all the time, or worse. You know, I got this lump on my neck they call lymphoma. So things would begin coming back. The phase 2 diet serves 2 purposes. It continues with a lot of the starving of the yeast, or it's a diet for those of you, like me, who don't really have health problems, who feel pretty good as we continue aging. The phase 2 diet is kind of a lifestyle diet. You mean I can make juices with my, with my vegetables or my fruits in the morning? Sure you can. You mean I can eat sourdough bread, like I was talking about earlier? Sure you can. Moderation is the key. As Dr. Jeff Chung, who used to work with me, once said on television, the goal in life is moderation. Consider that in everything except moderation itself. Do a lot of moderation is what he was talking about. Phase 2 diet is that. Find what provokes your symptoms and go off that. Maybe it's a way of identifying food allergy. I have now lived on a phase 2 diet, and I've got to tell you, you're not looking at a saint here. I'll go out with friends on occasion and have a glass of wine or eat some bread or toast or something like that. And I know that's when it's time to reel it back in, go off of those foods. So how does this phase 2 diet compare to popular diets today? Don't go away, I'll tell you.
I found Doug when he first came on the program here in Dallas area, and I had just gotten out of the hospital with the triple bypass surgery. And at that time I weighed 330 pounds, and I was watching him and found out also I was diabetic at the time, and started going on his phase 1 diet. I even ordered the book, the weight loss book, and so on. And this was in May, and by November I had lost 60 pounds and was no longer considered diabetic by my doctor. My glucose level went from 360 to 99 on average per day. And I'm now completely off of diabetic medicine, and I am no longer taking high blood pressure medicine. I would say I actually 2 weeks from the time that I started watching Doug and really became convinced, and that's when I ordered the book, the weight loss book, and going and finding out what the true phase 1 was. I probably, for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't feel a whole lot different. It was, in fact, at times, the Hersheimer that we've talked about before, that I've heard back today, went into effect, and I just felt really terrible. But it was within another 3 or 4 days, it just seemed like that it was a veil was taken off my face, and I was breathing better. My wife said my color was coming better, and 5 or 6 months, people kept saying, well, what are you doing? You just look so great, and so on. I said, well, if I'd known if this made me look better, I would have done it a long time ago. And I just feel like a whole new person, and I hope to lose another 60 pounds. And just, I owe it all to Doug.
Just how does this phase 2 diet that I'm on, and at 65 years young, I feel great. How does it stack up to other diets? The most popular diet, I think, today is a paleo diet. Man, they've gotten some PR. My friend Mark Sisson is kind of spearheading that whole movement with some other people. Look, the paleo diet says go off grains. Kaufman's phase 1 and phase 2 diet says go off grains. So if anything, I was there first. Smart people. They're smart people. But many people follow this paleo diet. You've read the books. I feel like $1 million. You're not eating mycotoxins from the grains. What's the difference then with the phase 2 diet and the paleo diet? First is sugars. More sugars in the paleo diet. But remember, these aren't sick people. They don't have cancer necessarily. They feel good. They're normally young people who are working out hard. So I love the paleo diet in that case. Number 2, you would guess, with young people working out hard, is a cold brewski. Not all. You can look online and get variations of the paleo diet. Not all of them say that alcohol is okay, but some of them do. Alcohol, folks, is linked to breast cancer. It's that simple. Alcohol is linked to human cancer. So the phase 2 diet says, be careful. Like I said in the last segment, from time to time, a few times a year, we'll get together with friends and have a glass of red wine or something with the dinner. And whereas 40 years ago that bothered the heck out of me, today I don't even feel it. So that's great. Now let's move to the next diet, which is called the Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean countries, Italy and so forth, have this diet that's rich in olives, olive oil, and so forth. And for some reason, the American Medical Association has picked up that diet and run with it. They absolutely love this diet, the basis of which is whole grains. I have to ask this question. What did we eat 20 years ago? Half grains? Quarter grains? What's the deal with whole grains today? And don't whole grains go into a silo? Don't they sweat with the sun beating down or the rain getting in the silo? Don't they degrade? Doesn't mold grow on them? You bet it does. As a matter of fact, 20 years ago, an article came out in the leading medical journal, Journal of the American Medical Association, that said our corn supply is universally contaminated with this mold that degrades and can give us diseases. And it said that other grains, and wheat's one of them, and oats and so forth, rice, other grains are often contaminated or commonly contaminated. And if you read the journals I read, you'll find that's true. We're worried about feeding this moldy grain to cows because we eat the meat and drink the milk, right? So we have to be careful of this mold. Any diet like the Mediterranean diet that's built on eating a lot of vegetables, what do they say here? Vegetables, fruits, I like that. But then, or based on whole grain, which many people on the Mediterranean diet do, just be careful. It's no wonder we haven't arrested cancer or heart disease in America, because we continue to drink alcohol, we continue to eat whole grains, and so forth. I think the key is going to be in avoiding grains from your diet. And man, I was slap silly 40 years ago saying that as un-American. Today, we're all doing it. Why? It's taken decades, but we all feel better. I was watching conservative TV one night, and the host said, "I've gone off wheat." And the whole world went off wheat because everybody watches this host, and everybody wrote in and said, "I'm starting to feel better." Duh. Folks, grains may be at the root of so many of our health problems. How do you know if it is? Try it. Go off them. And then I'll never forget, Nathan Pritikin was one of my mentors many, many years ago out in Santa Monica, California. But I'll never forget a cardiologist, right, by the name of Adkins. Dr. Adkins wrote many books, and he talked about cutting grains out of your diet around the same time, maybe a little after I got started with what I was doing. And I went to lunch with him one day, and I said, I think maybe the reason people are going off grains and feeling better, and I laid a study on a paper on his plate before they put the food on, and it said mycotoxins contaminate grains. And he said, Doug, I don't really know. And I ordered at that restaurant something you couldn't get 30 years ago very much, but at this restaurant you could, a carrot juice. And you'd have thought I had fallen out of my chair. He said, don't you know how much sugar is in that carrot juice? So the Atkins diet for a few weeks, I think to this day, still says, it's way too much sugar in carrot. Carrot has a component called falcarinol. Boom, to fungus. So I say carrots are good for you. Anything in moderation, except fast food. Don't do that. The Phase 2 diet is a lifestyle diet that you will certainly enjoy and learn a lot about yourself while following.
I would like to thank Doug Kaufman for his counsel that he gave me concerning my granddaughter, who had been diagnosed with atopic dermatitis about 4 years ago. We took her to the pediatrician and she wasn't getting any better. He recommended a dermatologist. She wasn't getting any better. In fact, she was getting worse. I remember Doug had come to visit New Life some time ago, 10 years ago. We took his advice, his counsel, read the book, did exactly what he said. He even recommended that we put her on nystatin, but the pediatrician nor the dermatologist wanted to give us a prescription. So we had a friend that was a PA who wrote the prescription for us, and that was when she was 4 years old. Today, Couture is 9. Couture doesn't have any problems with her skin, and we just want to thank Doug for the wonderful work that he's doing.
We love to talk about toenail crud. We don't want to see it, we just want to talk about it. One of the best remedies you can try is neem oil. Here's what you do. Get your infected toenail nice and soft, like from a bath or a shower. Trim it and then gently, and I mean gently, dig out as much fungus from underneath the nail that you can. Apply 2 drops of neem oil to each nail. It could take up to 2 weeks for you to notice improvement. Neem oil is sold at health food stores nationwide.
A lot of people are still afraid of fat. And I know why that is. Back in the 1980s, there was a mantra that fat makes you fat. We've since discovered that's really not the case at all. Throughout human history, good fats have been consumed, and all good fats do really, really good things. My 3 favorite good guy fats. Number 1, avocado, a good monounsaturated fat. Number 2 is fish oil. You need these omega-3 fatty acids. And the third one for me is coconut oil. You need some saturates, in my opinion, some good saturated fats, helping to nourish the brain, helping to nourish the hormonal system. And the other thing about coconut oil is that coconut oil is antifungal. Try these 3 and feel better soon.
Okay, you can find more of these great Phase 2 recipes by going to our website, knowthecause.com, like Denny's hash, sweet potato hash today. Guess what? That was a few months ago. I ate it, and I'm alive. This is a good way to eat. It really is. So many people are on these popular diets. Boy, January 1st in America is crazy. You want to lose the weight, and by February 1st, those ads are gone. You know, because they realized so many people got on board, spent their $300 for food, micro foods, and now they're gone. You need to be responsible for your ill health. We tend to throw our ill health into a doctor's office. There, you take it, doc, and the doc says, I don't want it, here's a pill. Get back to reasoning again, folks. There's a reason the ticker isn't working, or you're growing these things on your body, or something's wrong inside your body. You need to assume responsibility, and the Phase 2 diet is an excellent way to start. Phase 1 first, maybe for a few weeks, graduate to Phase 2, then you can see me on Facebook and say, hey Doug, it really works. I'll see you next time. God bless. Bye-bye.